The voice of sharing, 旅人ASEAN.
Hi and good morning. You're listening to Gowri on Durian ASEAN. It's Thursday today, and of course, I have fresh news from ASEAN, all over ASEAN, and also other parts of Asia to discuss with you a little later. First of all, of course, I'm going to give you the scores for last night, which is 2-4 in favor of Argentina. So a lot of people did not see that coming. Everyone was really positive that Netherlands was going to take this one because they've been really strong and consistent this season. But then again, I guess so was Argentina. And we'll have a discussion about the semifinals later on at 8:35 about the semifinals and also on the finals now that Argentina will be facing Germany in the finals, and we'll see how that one goes. So as usual, I'm going to take you back in time for a bit to see what else happened on this day. So it seems that back in July 9 is actually Argentina's Independence Day. So that was actually yesterday. So good for them. They won, and they had some very good news to present to their country. So back in 1745, the War of the Austrian Succession, the French victory in the Battle of Melle enabled their subsequent capture of Ghent. And in 1877, also the inaugural Wimbledon Championship, which is the oldest tennis tournament in the world, began for the first time. And in 1958, a 516 meters high mega tsunami, which is the highest ever recorded, struck Lituya Bay in Alaska, US. And in 1995, Sri Lankan civil war happened, and after having advised civilians to take shelter in places of worship, the Sri Lanka Air Force bombed a church in Navali, killing at least 125 people. So there you have it. What happened today, but back in time. And let's move on to our discussion for today. And I'm going to start with, of course, the haze issue. And as some of you may know, especially if you're in KL, the haze was really bad yesterday. And when you go outside, you could barely see the road or see the buildings. And the KL Tower, it's reported, cannot be seen clearly at all. You can only see the vague outline and not the building itself. And it seems that the Fire and Rescue Department, according to the Sun Daily, has its hands full dousing peat and forest fires, especially in Selangor. So it seems that we are back to this theory where our local fires cause the haze, and it's not just coming from Sumatra, which I totally agree with. We keep blaming Sumatra for this, that all their local fires is coming over to Malaysia and causing all the haze, which is probably true to a certain extent. But I guess one thing that we should consider is that open burning is very widely practiced in Malaysia. I have personally seen many places, especially in villages and stuff. They practice open burning very freely. I'm not sure if they're simply being ignorant, or they probably really don't know what are the repercussions of open burning, what are the consequences, what are the possible effects that they will face through open burning. And a department spokesman also said that Selangor had the highest number of fire breakouts with the last 2 days, recording 36 cases. And this has contributed to the haze. And I'm sure it didn't just come from the last 2 days. It has been accumulating for a very long time over the years. All this rampant open burning in the country. And also between July 1st and July 8th, a total of 501 fires were reported nationwide, including open burning activities. And the air quality readings were at an unhealthy level in certain parts of Klang Valley today. According to the Department of Environment website at 3 p.m., the air pollutant index, the API, for Batu Muda, Kuala Lumpur was 126, and Shah Alam was 88, Petaling Jaya 76, and Putrajaya 70. The situation did improve around 5 p.m., but even then, Batu, most of the readings came down. But I guess we have to really address this open burning issue in order to efficiently curb the haze problem in Malaysia. And as we all know, open burning is the leading cause of haze, and it's probably best to start with the rural areas, because it could be because of the lack of education or lack of awareness among them, that they don't know how bad open burning really is. They think that they're just getting rid of garbage, things they don't need, but it's actually very, very bad in the long run. So moving on, I'm going to talk about the Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. So Malaysia, of course, condemns the Israel airstrikes in Gaza, and Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Abdul Razak condemned the Israeli Defense Force airstrikes on Gaza Strip and called for an immediate cessation of military operations. And Najib also said in his Facebook account that Malaysia deplored any loss of innocent lives and called all parties to exercise restraint. And peace can only come with the creation of a viable two-state solution, and all parties should adhere to this principle, he said. And according to the emergency services in Gaza City, 11 women, children were among 17 Palestinians killed in Israeli strikes on the Palestinian territory Wednesday, hiking the overall death toll to 38 in just 2 days. And so far, it's reported that about 300 people have been wounded in the attacks. And this attack actually happened overnight, started with a fire in southern Israel. And the strikes started late on Saturday and early Sunday, and they targeted cities all across the coastal area, and wounding and damaging properties in Gaza City. And the strikes came after the Palestinian militant groups in Gaza fired 12 rockets at southern Israel on Friday and Saturday, which was last week. And the strikes, one of the rockets also hit an industrial zone in Sderot in southern Israel on Saturday, setting a building ablaze, causing casualties. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Islamist movement Hamas of kidnapping teens even, and he has launched sweeping search operations to find them. And of course, this conflict has been going on for a very long time. It dates back to 2006, when Israel launched the Operation Summer Rain, where they sent troops into Gaza to free a captured soldier. And that soldier was released in October 2011 in exchange for around 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. And also they carried out later that year in November Operation Autumn Cloud, in which 56 Palestinians, half militants, are killed. And on the 26th of November, the army ends 5 months of operations in Gaza, in which more than 400 Palestinians were killed. So this went on for a number of years, starting in 2006, 2008, 2010, 2011, especially in 2012. I think the attack became really severe again, and the strike on Gaza City killed. They had more than 250 rockets actually fired at Israel back in 2012. And the airstrike also killed 2 Islamic Jihad militants, sparking 5 days of fighting, which Israel killed another 15 Gazans who are mostly militants. In October, around another 15 Palestinians were killed, while more than 120 rockets were fired at Israel in defense. And the Operation Pillar of Defense is launched with a missile strike that kills top Hamas commander Ahmad Ja'abari in Gaza City, and hundreds of Israeli raids and militant rocket attacks over the 8 days. Of course, kill more people, and Egypt brokered truce takes effect on 21st November. And now the attacks are apparently back again, starting. Well, it has been going on since January. There's been raids, there've been abduction and murder, but things really got worse on the 8th of July when Israel launched the Operation Protective Edge. It calls up to 40,000 reservists and says that it's thinking about a full ground invasion. And this campaign follows violence that erupted over the grisly murder of a Palestinian teen by Israeli settlers. And initial reports say that 13 Palestinians are killed in the air raids, and the violence is quickly described as the worst since 2012. And source is Middle East Eye. So moving on to the next one, which is about back to Malaysia, about very much related to the World Cup, where two of our ministers made very interesting remarks in response to the World Cup. And one is, of course, Bung Mokhtar's Hitler tweet, where he said, "Well done, bravo, long live Hitler," after Germany's victory over Brazil yesterday morning. And the post immediately, of course, it became a rage in Twitter, and a lot of people responded asking him if he was sniffing glue in the morning. And well, he was not about to let that get to him. He fired back to all these people who tweeted him, telling them to get lost and enjoy with the loser, and also saying that some of them probably have mental issues. And he later posted that he was actually justifying his tweet, saying that he was referring to how strong the German team was back during Hitler's reign. But of course, we know that whatever Hitler did back then and whatever Germany is doing now, they are totally irrelevant, if you may. And he also said that Hitler massacred Jews, and many are angry, but Jews massacred the Palestinians, and all are quiet. And interestingly, the Penang Chief Minister Lim Guan Eng has called upon Bung Mokhtar to apologize for his tweet. And he said in a statement that his tweet is actually an insult to Germans. And he also said that if Bung Mokhtar had said this in Germany, he could have landed in jail. And I guess Lim Guan Eng got really upset because also he thinks that Penang actually has a huge amount of investors from the Germans and some of the biggest companies as well. And definitely, of course, we know that Bong is not from Penang, but probably for the Germans, they are not able to distinguish the difference. To them, we're all Malaysians, and when one Malaysian says things like that, it kind of reflects badly on all of us, and also probably on Penang. And Lim Guan Eng is a little worried about losing his investors. And he also said that in Germany, if one shows support for Nazi and Hitler, one goes to jail. But here, with double standards practiced by the government, he will definitely get away with it. And if that's not enough, our Prime Minister himself tweeted saying that that this country, if we lack leadership, we are going to fall apart like the Brazil team. And that's another tweet that drew an outrage from a lot of social media users, because it's also another irrelevant comment, because yeah, it's true that Brazil lost, and it was probably because their captain was not around. But to compare this whole country to the Brazil team, it just kind of doesn't make sense. And I guess our politicians should probably look into probably think about what they were going to say before they actually tweet it and draw an outrage from the entire country. So moving on now, we have a similar news like what I reported earlier about the airstrikes. But this time we're talking about North Korea, where on Wednesday, what they fired what appeared to be two short-range missiles into the sea in the latest series of launches, interspersed with spurned peace overtures to South Korea. So this is reported by thestar.com.my, and with a spokesman for the Joint Chiefs of Staff in Seoul said that the two missiles were fired from the western province of Hwanghae into the Sea of Japan, which is the East Sea. And he also said that we suspect they were short-range ballistic missiles. Spokesman Hoi-sik told AFP, adding that the range was around 500 kilometers. And this was the fourth missile test in less than 2 weeks. The previous launches had preceded a state trip to South Korea by Chinese President Xi Jinping and had been read by some analysts as a show of pique in his decision to visit Seoul before Pyongyang. So China is actually North Korea's major ally, while Xi has met 4 times with South Korean president, including in 2 summits. He has yet to sit down with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And North Korea is also not known to have a technical guided missile capability, but analysis of a recent propaganda film suggested that it may have acquired a variant of a Russian cruise missile, the KH-35. In between launches, the North Korea also extended a number of apparent olive branches to the south, including a proposal for both sides to halt an all-provocative military activity. And UN resolutions bar the North from conducting any ballistic missile test, but short to medium range launches have tended to go unpunished. So this is another dispute that goes way back in time to the Korean Wars and with North Korea and South Korea. And there's been many speculations as well that the Korean Wars could possibly happen again with the North and South, especially with the North kind of agitating the South. And let's just hope that nothing serious happens around here. And moving on to another news for this morning, I have a news where U.S. cautions China on aggressive behavior in strategic talks. So Manila, Philippines, the long-standing territorial dispute in the West Philippine Sea was among the issues discussed in the U.S.-China strategic and economic dialogue that started on Tuesday. In a special press briefing, a senior U.S. State Department official confirmed that the delegation led by Secretary of State John Kerry discussed a number of recent tensions in maritime issues with Chinese officials. And these issues include China's disputes with Vietnam, Philippines, and Japan. The official also said that the U.S. delegation was very consistent in the discussions that China should not continue its perceived aggression in the disputed waters. And this does not benefit China at all. We have discussed both in the past and in these sessions that we see there may be this pattern developing, a pattern of aggressive behavior, and it certainly does not benefit China in the long run. So I think this is something that we all definitely agree with the U.S., that they have been pretty aggressive over the last couple of months, starting with Philippines, and then the oil rigs in Vietnam, dispute over the Paracel Islands, and also building all those oil rigs and placing their military there, and also kind of intimidating Vietnam in a way. And it has caused a lot of I guess moves in each country. And as we all know, the Philippines has signed the the EDCA agreement with U.S. So U.S. can be its ally and help the Philippines in case of any attack, even from China. And also, the Philippines have been trying to foster a good relationship with the Japanese as well. And Japanese and Philippines is also another two countries that have been interrelated and also kind of codependent on each other economically, where Japan's technology is of course widely useful and helpful in the Philippines, whereas Philippines supply human capital and labor to Japan. And back in Vietnam, Vietnam has also been in talks with U.S. and trying to foster their relationship as well. And all this aggression has been happening in the last couple of months because China has been trying to expand its territory in the waters and causing all the disputes. We did have a couple of discussions on that as well, leading back to economic benefits, where the China probably wants to look for oil or even expand its marine economic, but they have to be careful not to strain their relations with the other countries in Southeast Asia. As you all know, ASEAN is made up of 10 countries, but we are a very a small entity, and we should all be helping each other out and not trying to intimidate each other or trying to give each other a hard time and assert your authority. So let's move on to Vietnam, where Japanese volunteers greatly benefit the country. So the Lao government and the people have expressed their gratitude for the Chinese government's assistance, which amounts to US 80 to 100 million a year, with Japanese voluntary activities also playing an important role in the nation's social and economic development. Deputy Prime Minister Asang Laoli conveyed the message when receiving a group of Japanese volunteers who paid a courtesy visit to him at his government office in Vientiane. And the Japanese ambassador to Laos, Mr. Hiroyuki Kishino, also the chief representative of International Cooperation Agency, led the group of 36 Japanese volunteers to call on Deputy Minister Asang yesterday. And this year, 42 Japanese overseas cooperation volunteers and 6 senior volunteers are working in various sectors, such as health, education, sports, agriculture, rural development, among many others. So this goes back to what I just said a little earlier, that we're a small region here in Southeast Asia, or on the East Asia itself. And it's great to see countries helping each other out, especially for a country that is very far developed, like Japan, to send volunteers to Laos to help out in various sectors and to put their skills to good use and into bring up Laos in a way. It brings back hope to everyone. Oh, and I think that's all the time that we have for our news this morning. I hope you learned something from our news commentary today. And of course, don't forget to like us on Facebook, facebook.com, Durian ASEAN. We are also on Twitter, on YouTube, and we upload 2 videos every day from Monday to Friday. And if you want to keep yourself updated about our weekly topics and speakers, of course, you can always go to www.durianasean.com, or you can also send us an email for our weekly digest, which is at durianasean@gmail.com. Coming up in our Blast from the Grassroots, we have a little World Cup analysis for you today, now that we are entering the finals and we are at a very, very crucial moment in the World Cup. And that's all from me. I'll see you in a bit.